about redefining landscape during COVID-19 pandemic. We must be believed that during this pandemic, the activity in urban area is significantly affected, yeah. And to understand it in more detail about urban landscape during the pandemic, we will learn it directly from the expert, from Dr. Budi Faisal. And for this lecture, it will be chaired by Dr. Paul Jones from the University of Sydney. Yesterday, we had remarkable lecture from Dr. Paul Jones, and for today, Paul will become moderator to Pak Budi Faisal lecture session. Okay, before following the lecture, please let me inform you the rundown for today. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah. In the first session, there will be a lecture from Dr. Budi Faisal, moderated by Dr. Paul Jones. And then in the second session, there will be a Q&A, question and answer. And then for the last session, there will be concluding remarks from Paul Jones. Yeah, can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, perfect. Thank you. This is the rules for today's webinar. The rules are the same as before, so participants are expected to use the Zoom account based on real names, and participants also expected to maintain the order during the lectures, of course. And since today's lecture will be conducted in webinar mode, so should you have any question, please don't be hesitate to put it in the Q&A column chat below. And please make sure to watch the question in the Q&A column. If you have similar question with previous question from other participants, so you can upvote for the question by clicking like or thumbs up icon under the question. And then before following the lecture from Dr. Budi Faisal and handing over to the moderator, please let me read the curriculum vitae of our moderator for today. Yeah. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah, this is the biographical summary of Dr. Paul Jones. Before the slide before. Dr. Paul Jones is Associate Professor in the University of Sydney. And then Paul is an urban development and urban management practitioner with 30 years experience in Australia and overseas. He also has a lot of agency experience, conducted numerous projects with UN Habitat, ADB, AusAid, UNDP, UNESCO, and so on and so forth. This year, Paul is appointed as a member of editorial board of Springer Urban Book. And it's fact to know, back in 2015, Paul and Bu Sri were the initiator of this joint studio. Thank you very much for creating this amazing studio, Paul and Bu Sri. All right, we are now continuing to our main agenda, that is to hear the lecture, which will be delivered by Dr. Budi Faisal and moderated by Dr. Paul Jones. So everyone, please welcome Dr. Paul Jones.
Thank you, listener. Thank you for those kind words and words of introduction. Also, I think welcome to Dr. Budi Faisal, and importantly, welcome to all the participants that are here late this afternoon. And we're all looking forward to a very interesting lecture on the COVID-19 pandemic and implications. As listener said, I'll be the moderator for the lecture by Dr. Budi Faisal, and it's on the topic of redefining urban landscapes during COVID-19 pandemic. So just sort of briefly, just to tell you a bit about Budi, he comes with a very strong pedigree. He's a lecturer, obviously, at the School of Architecture, Planning and Policy Development at the highly esteemed ITB University in Indonesia. He's got a very fine education. He's got an undergraduate degree from the Institute of Technology, Bandung, a master's degree from the University of Colorado in America. And importantly, he's managed to come to a nice part of the world. He has his PhD from the University of Melbourne, which is one of the highest ranking universities, plus a school, built environment schools in the world. His research interests are in architectural design, landscape architecture, urban designs, and healthy buildings design. He teaches sustainable urban design in the Urban Design Master's Degree program. And what I also should mention is that he is also Program Director of the Architecture section and discipline at ITB in the school. Just before we pass to Budi, just remember to place your questions in the chat room. Listen to Budi, and I'll make a summary of the questions, and then at the end of his lecture, we can try and work through those questions with Budi. So, Dr. Budi Fazal, welcome, and it's over to you for your lecture on day 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Can I just share my presentations? Just a second. Can everybody seeing my presentation?
Yes, Pak Budi.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My topics of my presentation is redefining urban landscape during COVID-19. Just to give you a context, today we can see global cases in the world, 10 highest global cases. The first rank is United States, while in Southeast Asian countries, Indonesia is the highest, more than 1.2 million. And if you can see also the death toll today is almost 35,000 people passed away. So it is a very sad information for Indonesian. And let us see how the landscape can contribute to the mitigations of COVID in some extent. First of all, I would like to show you how global pandemic shaped the morphology of the urban landscape. The first one is chlorella and cholera and tuberculosis. Pandemic, the city of London and also other cities. It is in the 1850s, the deadly outbreaks of cholera associated with the untreated human waste and industrial fumes. The unsanitary living conditions such as poor sanitation, overcrowding, poor ventilation has inspired architects, planners, and philanthropists to design a new communities that prioritize on health via open space and green settlements, and many of which continue to shape our cities today. London's overhaul of sewerage system allowed for the expansion of grand public parks and many other public parks as well. The second has initiated the Garden City movement. It is started in 1902 when Ebenezer Howard in England proposed idle settlements in response to the spread of urban disease, in this case is influenza. Canberra design in 1913 is actually heavily indebted to the Garden City concept. While in 1913 up to 1920, Welwyn Garden City, designed by Ebenezer Howard, is actually a self-sustainable and resilient satellite city against the ruptures in the supply chain caused by the disease. This allowing local agriculture to feed its residents with minimum transportation cost. And from 1922 until now, this Garden City movement spreading to 28 garden cities in the UK and also of course across the globe to the rest of Europe, North America, as well as in Asia. Let me check now what is actually the definition of a healthy city. A healthy city, if we are referring to WHO, World Health Organization, is one that can continually creates and improves its physical and social environments. So it is not only physical, but as well as social environments, and expands the community resources that enable people to mutually support each other in performing all the functions of life and developing to their maximum potential. This is the report on August 2020, just last year. We can show you now how important is the outdoor space. If we see the graph, the square is the room without ventilation or very bad ventilation, and the triangle is the one with a very good ventilation. We can see aerosol in fully ventilated space. Sorry. Sorry. Yep. Aerosols in fully ventilated spaces has a very strong connection with SARS-CoV transmission. So good ventilation of indoor spaces reduces the airborne droplets and aerosol. So that improving ventilations improve the dilutions of the drops in their air and reduces the concentration of the virus droplets. And we can see from the graphs, the cases of cases per outbreak, that the indoor spaces contribute the transmitting COVID 18.7 more compared to the one in the open air spaces. This is why now redefining the open space, redefining the urban space is very relevant and significant during the pandemic. I would like to show you a very interesting findings or result on September 2020 in the United States. That urban revegetation showed and plays an important role in slowing down the spread of COVID-19. 1% increase in the percentage of urban vegetation, making 2.6% decrease in cumulative COVID-19. So increasing the proportion of urban vegetation coverage should be considered in future urban planning, which is very important for human well-being in achieving sustainable development goals, especially in goals number 3 and 8 and 11. Urban landscape as a habitat for human with their green infrastructure actually could provide ecosystem services, food production, and other benefits that maintain human physical and mental health, especially during the lockdown periods. Urban landscape as barriers can also contribute to slow down the spread of the diseases. I would like also to show you one data. There is a newfound interest in amplifying the critical role that public parks can play in addressing today's global health challenges and provide essential infrastructure and services during this time of crisis. 83% US adults agree that visiting their local parks, trails, and open spaces have been essential for their mental and physical well-being during the COVID-19. I do believe that we need an integrations of the green infrastructure. Start from a very small scale in the building scale, neighborhood scale, city scale, up to regional scale. If we have the network or a green network within the urban green infrastructure, then the issue of urban ecology will be maximized. If this scale is not related to each other, is not integrated, then the contribution of the partial scale, it will not be optimum or will not be maximum. Let me show you some lesson learned that we can have from many big cities in the globe. Yeah. The first one is advocating walkable, unpolluted, and vehicle-free cities during the pandemic, closing some streets to car and opening more bicycle lanes as well as pedestrian walks. And second, appreciating green spaces. They put more greenery, more pocket parks, more playgrounds, more breathable places. I would like to underline the pocket parks is more important now compared to bigger parks. You can see from New York, Berlin, California, Milan, Bogota, as well as Jakarta. Yeah, they have put more bike lanes, cycle lanes, widen the sidewalk, and so forth. It is very interesting to note if we see the graphic of bicycle booming in Indonesia. On the left side, the red one is Indonesian graphic, while the green one is the world graphic. We can see that the bicycle booming is very significant during June to July. And especially for the folding bikes, yeah. On the right side, the blue one is the folding bikes, when people can do their biking in the city with their folding bikes. They can put it on the trunk of the cars, and they do the cycling just around the cities, as well as the mountain bike and of course the road bikes. Surprisingly, on June 2020, there is 1,000% increase bicycle use in Jalan Tamrin and Jalan Sudirman in Jakarta, while it's only 150% increase in Beijing, and also in only almost 70% increase in New York. So, for instance, before COVID, in Jakarta, it's only 2 bicycle units sold per month, but during the COVID, it's almost 100 bicycle units sold per month. Yeah. Sometimes it could become 10 bicycles units sold only during 4 days. Yeah. And let me show you now some lesson learned from other countries. Public parks, they do the physical distancing. For instance, this one is in New York during the pandemic. And they also do the social distancing and physical distancing. I prefer to use physical distancing actually, not using social distancing, because with physical distancing, we still have a very good social relation. Yeah, this is, for instance, dividing up Parliament Square with organic shapes to make sure that people not making a crowd. And even in the Stanford University, they do some lectures in the outdoor spaces. Yeah. They do many temporary playground, yeah, for children's, also for sports, yeah, separate spaces for sports. In Singapore, I think our neighbor, they do a very strict regulation for social and recreational activities. This is also another ideas using spiral garden, for instance, in Vienna. So to make sure that people will not be in crowdness. And also separate space for playground. You can see in the picture that the children can only play in a very specific compound or compartments, or they do a very individual playing, like here, yeah, bike park, bicycle trails, yeah. This one is considered safer than the one that is in a compartment. In Indonesian context, we have traditional market, pasar tradisional in Salatiga in Central Java. So we can do also the buying and selling in traditional market using a very simple square. Yeah. I would like to show you now a very important case in Indonesia, especially in a big city in Java, which is flooding. Based on the recent data by Institut Pertanian Bogor, in Jabodetabek Punjur, which is Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, Bekasi, Puncak, and Cianjur, from 2015 up to 2030, there is a significant increase of the build-up area from 5% to 47%. In 2015, there are 17 forests, but in 20 and 30, they predict, EPB predict there will be only 4%. In 2015, there are still 41% paddy field land use, but the prediction in 2030, significant land use change from forest and paddy field into build-up area, meaning settlements. I would like to show you this picture, which is very important, and to understand why we cannot see the flood mitigation only from a particular city or individual city. Jakarta is in the downstream of many watersheds. So from urban landscape ecology, we cannot see Jakarta by its own. We have to see Jakarta in a bigger context within the watershed system. So the integrated watershed system from upstream until downstream is very important. Cities landscape planning must viewed from watershed perspective. The importance of regional collaboration within the scope of watershed system for flood mitigation is a must. So if we would like to mitigate Jakarta flood problems, we have to see way far from the upstream, which is from Cianjur, Regency, Bogor, Depok, Bekasi, and Tangerang. We cannot solve the flooding in Jakarta without seeing the watershed system within the much bigger context. And in this case, redefining the urban landscape, especially from the view of landscape ecology, is very important. There is one system which is not yet executed in Jakarta, as well as in other Indonesian cities, but it's already executed in Bandung to some extent, which is injection well for flood mitigation. So in our data, one of my colleagues from ITB make a calculation. If we use a 2,200 something unit of injection well, it will significantly decrease the flooding of Jakarta every year. But until now, I think this idea is not really executed yet. People still talking about normalization, naturalization, widening the pond, the retention lake, detention lake, but not really on this injection well, which is already proved and executed in many big cities around the globe. Yeah. If we do the injection well, I think we need to do it until the proper aquifer is more than 100 and 200 meters. Under Jakarta land. This is the profile of Jakarta. Then hopefully we can significantly mitigate the flooding in Jakarta. Now I would like to show you that actually during the pandemic, when people is very afraid to go outside, especially to a bigger outdoor spaces like city park, even a neighborhood park, it is very important to know the role of our local wisdom. For instance, this one, the program of Jogotongo, Jogotongo. They do communities collaboration to manage the food supplies and help others in response to the pandemic. They do many hydroponic projects in a very local context in their own backyard or even in their terrace, and this is considered successful in Central Java. I would also to show you in South Kalimantan. They do what they call resilient kampung, or in Indonesia we call it kampung tangguh. Actually, this is a community enforcement of basic COVID-19 prevention measures. And also in West Java, in Bogor, they allocate their rice each year after the harvesting to support a vulnerable group or a marginal group in the community. This is already happening many years ago, and it is become very relevant and significant during the pandemic. And also from Central Java, the local crowdfunding to buy rice during COVID outbreak, they bought it from Central Java by the community, and they give charity for Jakarta people, poor Jakarta people. Yeah, we call it in Indonesia saweran beli beras. Yeah, it's like a local crowdfunding to buy rice. Yeah, from Central Java to Jakarta. Finally, I'm very proud to show you this, that there was a significant increase in animal sacrifice during Idul Adha. Yeah, during the sacrifice days of cow, lamb, etc. during the pandemic. While people saying that during the pandemic, people try not to do the giving because they need the money for their family, for their big family. But in fact, I'm very proud to see this data. In national level, there are around 76 or almost 77 million rupiah, billion rupiah in total, meaning 60% increase the palm giving of the animal sacrifice during the Idul Adha compared to last year in the same period. So I would like to show you, and I would like to underline this, that actually redefining the urban landscape is one thing, and it could become, we could see it from two perspectives. From a physical perspective, doing a better urban landscape planning, urban landscape design. But nevertheless, there is more important than that is the unphysical, the unseen things, which is the social cohesion, which is the social togetherness, what we call gotong royong in Indonesia, is actually also very increasing and very important. I would like to say this is more important compared to the physical approach. I think that's all my presentation. Thank you very much. I'll give to Paul back. Please, Paul.
Well, yeah, thank you, Dr. Budi Faisal. That was a fascinating presentation. Some very interesting. You made some fantastic points there. I mean, I think that the nice thing about your presentation, and I know it'll be shared with students, is the way that you set the geographical context to start with. And I think for a lot of us, given that we often start our sort of design and planning degrees, you then introduce the garden city, the unsanitary conditions, and that whole thing that led to the whole sort of modern architecture and design and planning movement, which is, and I think the point you were making was in different ways is, it's subject to various forces and transformation, and then obviously the system adapts, and hence you moved on to things about the healthy city, the important role of vegetation. I thought that was a very good point about to say that for every, I think it was for every one case, that for every 2.6 vegetation, that there was a decrease in COVID cases. The great thing about the bicycle boom, which was fantastic. And then, of course, you talked about the physical distancing, again, to see all those sort of geometric expressions, the spatial expressions. You know, I think for students here tonight, I think they're all very important to see all these different, again, adaptations. You talked about, again, the importance of the floodwater, which is, again, another aspect. And then you finished up, you know, on, I think on a really good note, sort of moving away from the physical, and then talking and focusing about the importance of social cohesion and this thing about social togetherness. I think that's a really fantastic point to finish off. And I think all the students can reflect on their own contexts and socio-cultural contexts and see, you know, how they respond, you know, in that setting that you mentioned. You know, do you gauge a sense of social cohesion and togetherness, or perhaps, you know, in the sort of more formal sort of, everything's a lot more disconnected in contrast to what you were showing there. So I think they're really good points to finish off on. So we're going to move to some questions, Dr. Budi. And I'm just going to go to the first one here. I'm just going to go, I think it's by, it's DG Clario. And they ask, how can we guarantee social justice in this COVID-19 situation for everyone? Due to physical or social distancing in the community level in Indonesia seems absurd in some cases. So the question is, how do we guarantee social justice in COVID-19? And I think, you know, that their point is that physical or social distancing at a community level, from their view, seems absurd. Dr. Budi.
Okay. From my point of view, we cannot guarantee a social justice in many aspects in this world, not only in Indonesia, of course. Yeah. But especially for the urban poor, I think they are in dichotomy situation. Yeah. Some of them, they don't have any choice other than go out and do the business as usual, or they are staying at their home, but they are starving. So it's better for them to take the higher risk going outside, even during the local lockdown, because it is a must for them to do something for their living. So I think in the urban poor, in some community level, because the issue of what you call that, social justice is not relevant for them. Not only in big cities, I think also in many smaller cities, this has happened, that people do not have a choice other than go out, or they can starving to death if they're just still be at home. I think this is a situation in Indonesia. The gap between the have or the rich and the poor is still very high. So in this case, I think the government or the community or the academic can help with socialization, collaborate with them to do the more secure and safe things when they do the to earn for their living. I think that's my questions, Paul, for Clario, yeah, for DG Clario. Yes.
Yep, thank you. A question from Ratu from at ETB makes this general comment before the question. Nowadays, when society is transforming into a virtual community because more people feel unsafe and uncomfortable for interaction in the physical public space, The question is, will this temporary transformation change permanently the perception of future public space? So again, question, a comment about society transforming into a virtual community because people feel perhaps unsafe and uncomfortable in the physical public space. And now asking, will this temporary transformation that we're going through now change permanently the perception of future public space?
Okay, thank you for Ratu Sonia Mentari. Yeah. I think all of us must have a very strong faith that this pandemic will be over. Yeah, we are going back to normal. But I think this coronavirus give us a very strong lesson learned, insight, wisdom that we need to replan and redesign our public spaces so they are more flexible when another pandemic is coming. Because according to many epidemiologists in the world, not only in Indonesia, there will be more pandemic, different pandemics coming in the next 5 years. So I think we learned from COVID-19 now, COVID-19 outbreak, that our public spaces need to be very flexible. And we need to put more attention towards local parks, community parks, or gardens that is within walking distance from the neighborhood. This is based on many research and findings around the globe, especially in the United States and the Europe. So if you see, is this transformation of the perceptions is changed permanently? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think people will go back to normal, but we need to replan, rethink, and redesign our public spaces to be more flexible and anticipative. Yeah, if the more pandemic is coming, different pandemic is coming, we are ready. Yeah, to face the pandemic. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Budi. This question's from Pakuan Isan. The question is, do you think many Indonesian citizens will comply to the implementation of segmented spatial distance public parks to mitigate the spreading of the COVID-19 virus? Because as we know, there are still many citizens who don't take seriously the COVID-19 disease. So do you think many Indonesian citizens will comply to the implementation of the idea of the segmented spatial distance public park to mitigate the spreading of the COVID-19 virus?
Yeah, from some communities, another segment community, yes. I think the one who knows exactly about the character of this virus, I think there will be what do you call that? I think they will stay away from the crowd. I think they will do the what you call that? The guidance from the government. Yeah, that they use their masks, they do the distance, and they wash their hands regularly. But I think from other people, unfortunately, I think majority of the people that I've seen in the city, they do not do this protocol. Yeah, they are not wearing masks. They do the crowd. They do the crowdness, and others. Yeah, maybe I think we cannot say that they are not serious. Maybe they don't have enough knowledge about this. Maybe it is they don't have any choice. They have to do the crowd, yeah, because of the characteristic of their jobs, yeah. But I think majority of them they don't have enough knowledge about this virus. So then our task as academician together collaborate with the local governments and other movements of the community movement to do the socialization of this virus. And this is not only the task of the government. I think this is the task of all communities, including us as the academicians, or of course for the intellectuals like Pak Wan, yeah, the one who asked me. Back to you, Paul.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Novia from ITB. The question is, thank you for your presentation, Dr. Budi Fazal. What is your opinion about Badu village? Oops, it's been moved. What is your opinion about Badu village in Banten, Indonesia, where until now there are still 0 cases of residents infected with the COVID-19 virus? What is your opinion about Badu village in Banten, Indonesia, where until now there are still 0 cases of residents infected with COVID-19?
Yeah. As far as I know, Baduy has their own local wisdom or local traditional value. Their necessity in daily necessities, and also they have a very sensitive towards the environment. So I predict maybe because they have their local system, many local wisdom going on in Baduy village. Even I think we remember maybe 3 months ago or 4 months ago, they asked the government not to put their area in the destination tourism area in Indonesia. They don't want to do that. Yeah, they don't want to be a destination, tourist destination in Indonesia, because they feel tourism is not good for their social value. Tourism is not good for their local value. But I think this is not general cases in Indonesia. Only some of these traditional village like Baduy has their specific traditional value. I do believe we can learn from them, especially their sensitivity towards the environment, their sensitivity towards preserving their local values. And I think people of Indonesia can learn something from them. Okay, back to you, Paul.
Next question. It's an anonymous participant. Thank you, Mr. Buddha, for the presentation. My name is Banga from ITB. From the example that you've shown, there's a temporary design for public space. It can provide a public space during a pandemic. So my question is, will the temporary transformations seen during the pandemic inspire more permanent changes like the design of the urban park and so on? Do we need a new typology for public space?
Yeah, I think the questions is very similar to some other questions before. My questions is that we don't need to totally redesign or having new typology for gardens and public spaces, but we need to replan and redesign so our public spaces, public gardens and park more flexible and anticipative towards more pandemics coming in the future. So not totally redesign, but I think be aware and be concerned if another pandemic is coming, that we are ready to have more physical distancing, more touchless technology, and so forth. Back to you, Paul.
Okay, the next question is from Fajar. It looks like ITI. Hello, I'd like to ask Dr. Budi's opinion regarding the importance of pocket small parks over larger parks. How wide or large should the pocket park be by minimum and maximum area? And what do you think of the government to maintain the pocket park? Would it be high maintenance? We already know the government has a disadvantage about maintenance.
Yeah, thank you very much to Fajar Ali Mustafa. I think many research findings show that during the pandemic, people tend to go to the community park or pocket park because they feel safer, because the pocket park is very close there to their living, to their neighborhood, to their community, still within walking distance. So if you ask me about the maximum area or minimum area, I don't know, yeah, because it's very varied from places to places, yeah. Could be only 50 meters, 50 square meters, up to 100 square meters, or even 1,000 square meters. It's really depend. Like in Indonesia, of course, pocket park in Kalimantan, Sulawesi, and Papua must be significantly different with pocket park in Java, which is very, very crowded in Java. So I think there is no general or generic standard for the size. About the maintenance, I think again, yeah. Now, I think Bandung is one of the good example according to the management and maintenance of the parks, not only pocket parks but up to the neighbor until the city parks or neighbor parks. I think the government can collaborate with community, with association, with many local community and with, of course, with the private companies to do the maintenance and the management of the parks. Yeah, we cannot rely only to the government. I think that's the solutions for the maintenance. Yeah, otherwise we can see we cannot have a very nice and clean public parks. But when Bandung city collaborate with community, with private companies, then we can see the result. Yeah, our many parks in Bandung now is well maintained. Okay, thank you.
This next question is from Ema. There's two parts here. The first is, are there any special efforts or physical arrangements or regulation of community behavior as users in the development of public spaces in the future, especially in densely populated areas? So I think that the point there, I think, is getting to, should there be a stronger regulation and obviously making special efforts in the physical side in densely populated. And the second part is, what is the role of technology in the development of public spaces, and how can that be involved?
Yeah. First of all, I think we can use the visitor management system. So there is a maximum capacity or carrying capacity in one places. And then we can manage it through technology, of course. We can do the online booking, and also we distribute the visitors into hours and days and weeks. I think it's already happening now in many tourist destinations in Indonesia. If we can do the system, the visitor management system, I think then we can manage, yeah, the tourist destination or even the parks and gardens. So now parks and gardens, I think we can manage it with the visitor management system through technology. One of them is online booking. Yes, that's all.
Yep, that's good. This one is from Fazil at ITB. Thank you, Pak Budi. I have a question. How about landscape or open spaces integrated against any buildings during the pandemic? And how realizing against existing ones if we have any new replan or redesign? So how about landscape or open space integrated against any buildings during the pandemic? So that's obviously, that's clear. And the next bit just not too clear. And how realizing against existing ones if we need to do perhaps any replan or redesign. Thank you.
I'm so sorry, Faisal. I'm not really understand the questions. Yeah. If you can rearrange a little bit your questions, maybe later on I can understand and I can try to answer the questions. I'm sorry, Faisal. Maybe we can move to the next question, Paul.
Yep. So thank you, Dr. Budi Fazal, for the presentation. I have a question. If more green space with good circulation can reduce the increase of COVID cases, then how can we put it in our planning policy or for a future resilient city? Because we know land for green space is decreasing every year. It's a good question.
Okay, thank you very much for Fahmi Alam. If we learn from Beijing, for instance, from Beijing, and I think Beijing is one of a good example in China. The local government, their mayor, have a roadmap that they have to have 50% green open space within 30 years. This is also happened in planning agency in Boston. So also in Jakarta, the Jakarta city has a target. Every year they have to have more green open space. So I think as long as we need the target based on our law of open space, that every city need to have 30% open space, 20% of them from the government, from public, and 10% from the private. And I know that Jakarta is going to realize that target. And I think every cities in Indonesia must follow or must execute this law of open space. So this is happening in many other big cities in the world. And Jakarta, from year to year, also have more open space. One of them is try to make the city of our city compact. So instead of you doing the urban sprawl, we need to go vertical. In order to have more open space, then we need to go vertical. This is also, of course, we cannot do this in general to other cities outside Java. Like in Kalimantan, Papua, Sulawesi, there's still more open space. So I think some of their cities, their green open space is more than 50%. So we have to have more variety of regulations. I think our regulations now heavily referring to Java context. While in Indonesia, in other islands in Indonesia, I think we need more specific regulations regarding the open space. So the fact is, it's not like that, Fahmi. In big cities in Java, like Jakarta, Surabaya, Bandung, we are gaining more open space year to year. That's all, Paul.
Yep, thank you. The next question is from Radi Putra from ITV. Thank you, Dr. Budi Fazal, for the explanation. I have one question that is correlating to the Joint Studios case study, which is Kampung Lebak Siliwangi. As we know, Kampung Lebak Siliwangi has a high building density where there isn't too much open space left. The question is, in your opinion, what's the best solution to create new open space in a dense urban area? Thank you. It's a good question.
Yeah, Paul, I think your Indonesian pronunciation is getting better now. You pronounce it very well. Kampung Lebak Siliwangi. Congratulations, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, Raidi. As I said before, Raidi, in Kampung Lebak Siliwangi, the density is very low. Because they are a very horizontal development. I think maximum in Kampung Lebak Siliwangi only 2 stories. So I think my suggestions is you need to make it as a compact development, not to have a multi-stories building, 20 stories buildings. I think 4 stories walking apartments is one of the ideal solutions, for instance. So not really high buildings, yeah, high tall buildings, but medium. 4 walk-up apartments we can do by staircase based on our Indonesian regulations, or maximum 6. And in order to preserve the kampung ambience, the kampung atmosphere, I think you need to mix 2, 3, 4, up to 6 stories development. Then we can have more open space. So in Kampung Lebak, actually the density is very low, because their development is going horizontally. We need to make dense a little bit denser, up to 4, up to 6 stories development. That's my suggestion. Thank you, Reddy. Back to you, Paul.
Okay, the next question is from Satrio from UT. The question is, good evening. In other countries, they use open space as a facility for socializing, in brackets, physical distancing. In Indonesia, public space is running out because it is used for community settlements. Is this pandemic situation, can we make public space re-available in Indonesia? Is this possible?
I think my answer is very similar to what Raidi's questions before this question. I think it is possible. Make it denser, make it a compact development, but do not think we have more taller buildings like 20 stories, 28 stories. I think 4 stories up to 6 stories development is proper for this kampung development within the city, because I think we need to preserve the ambience of kampung from horizontal to vertical, but we cannot do too high, up to more than 20 stories. If it is from 4 to 6, maximum 8 stories, I think we can still see the characteristic of kampung. I remember my colleague using as a proposal how to do the vertical kampung development. Or we can learn from Professor Johan Silas from Surabaya when they do a vertical housing program in Surabaya with using many public facilities in each stories of the buildings. I think they call it Kampung Surabaya, 4 stories, up to 6, 8. But if you go higher, up to 20 stories and more, I think we will lose the characteristic of kampung ambience. Okay, that's all. Satrio, back to you, Paul.
Okay, this is the second last question. This is from Tia Purba from UNPAC. Thank you for your knowledge, Dr. Budi. I remember about the P2KH by the government. What do you think about this program in relation to the pandemic in COVID and the empirical study that you explained earlier? Thank you.
Yeah, I think a couple of years ago, I also joined the program. P2KH is actually about Green City program initiated by the Minister of our Public Housing in Indonesia. I think this is a very good program. Unfortunately, it is not continued now. I do propose, and I would like to convince the government of Indonesia that we need to continue this program. I think there's many best successful experience, best practice of the city around Indonesia that's already applied P2KH if it is using the guidance, following the guidance, and also with some supervisions, of course. One of my critiques toward this program, we need to create unique character of each of the city. The problem is now, ecologically, we can say that the cities under P2KH program, they have more green open space, but the problem, they are very similar. The one in outside Java is very similar with the city in Java. I think we need to give them what we call a cultural landscape. Yeah. If we only rely on vegetations, I think all vegetations is very similar in Indonesia. Although there is some differences, but we need to introduce the culture, yeah, but with the batik patterns, the craftsmanship of the local community. We can insert them into the design of the, for instance, the pattern, the design of the landscape furniture or street furniture or urban furniture. Then we'll have a very unique green open space in every city. Like we understand that Indonesia is a very, very rich in regard to culture. Yeah. So if we can back to you, Paul.
Okay, that's great. Last couple, we're just on the home straight here. This one is from Rizky from ITSB University, as well known in Bandung. Firstly, community activities in open spaces are one of the causes of the spread of COVID-19. However, in Lebak Siliwangi, there is quite a little bit of open space, but there is still a high spread of COVID-19 cases. Based on this, what indicators are the causes of the spread of COVID-19 in slum areas? And secondly, what should we do first between spatial planning and aspatial planning, namely their activities, to resolve the spread of COVID-19 in slum areas?
Yeah, as if we refer to my last presentation, the last maybe four slides of my presentation, I'm underlining actually that social activities is much more important than the physical planning. I remember Jan Gehl, a Danish architect, says, first life, then spaces, then buildings. The other way around never works. I think in this case in Indonesia, we need to put more concern to the social activities. To this virus during the pandemic. In the community, especially in the marginal community, in the slums area. This is much more important than physical planning. I think that's my answer to Rizky. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Budi. That's a very good answer. And look, the final one here, this is just from Faisal Kandra, who's come back again from ITB. And if you remember her question here, she's really asking about the realization of landscape and open spaces and application of any of these in a new plan or new design with the existing condition during a pandemic. If that can, I think that clarifies a little bit.
Yep, thank you very much, Faisal. I think now I understand your question. So during the pandemic, I think some cities like I know in Bandung and in Jakarta as well, because I also joined the design forum in Bandung under the city of Bandung government, that now we are trying to replan and redesign our public open space in Bandung bit by bit, with also of course pandemic in mind. For instance, now we are more having a cluster within the city park. So city park is not only big spaces, but then we also create smaller spaces. We also create more individual benches. Like if you know in Bandung, we have a Taman Jomblo under the Surapati flyover. So we have individual benches and others, and revegetation as well, because we believe bad air quality is actually invite more virus. Yeah. So we then also put more greeneries in many big parks in Bandung as well as in Jakarta. So it's happening now. It's happening. I think this is a good insight and a good lesson learned from the pandemic. Now, our government put more attention to have more quality urban parks, yeah, than previous one, yeah, before the pandemic.
All right, thank you, Dr. Budi. This will be the last question. We won't take any more after this. Otherwise, I think Dr. Budi, it'll be, you know, he's done very well. This is from Sandy, who says, thank you very much for your presentation, Dr. Budi. And I think perhaps you've answered some of this before. It says, how are your tips to create a public space that can last a long time in the midst of rapid technological changes? It's our last question.
Yeah, if we learn from the history, yeah, landscape history, people seeing landscape not only from a physical beauty, they also want to see the inner beauty of the landscape, which is landscape ecology. And landscape ecology now needs to curate within the city, within the density, because the one in the city need more gardens with quality of the quality of good ecology, rather than the one living in the rural area. So for me, if we can now put more quality of our urban parks, urban open space, not only from a visual value, not only from physical value, but now I think we can measure the contribution of the ecology of that park, meaning more stratification of vegetation, meaning more variety of vegetations, not only small trees, but small trees until a bigger trees. We can learn from the Dutch actually when they colonized us more than 300 years. Yeah, they are putting more bigger trees in Indonesia. Yeah, because maybe they think they will colonize us until the end of the day. So we can have it now, bigger trees, and the contribution towards ecology of the city is very, very good. In regarding technology, I think the technology need to support this movement. You need to support this movement. In Singapore, for instance, every big cities in boulevard or big roads in Singapore, they put a chip in every individual trees, individual big trees. Yeah, in this case, they have Samanaya Saman, Trembesi, Ki Hujan in Indonesian language. They put every chips in every individual trees, so they can control the development of the trees as well as the health of the trees. I think we need to use the technology in order to have more good quality of our urban spaces. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, well, that's great. Some great questions there. And look, just in wrapping up, just want to thank Dr. Budi Fazal for, you know, look, a fantastic presentation. There was so many concurrent themes there running together, which I think will be fantastic for students as they sort of head towards the weekend and doing their studio week. I think it was great, Dr. Budi, in the sense that you had things in there about history, learning from history, about the things that are happening at the moment, the importance of physical on one hand, quality, biodiversity, seeing the system as a whole. And I think also, yeah, as you said, they're just towards the end, it's the quality of spaces that are also most important. And I think as you again trying to make the stress that importance of different contexts, you know, you made those points about social cohesion and social togetherness, which for some communities is the glue that binds them together. So again, look, on behalf of everyone tonight, yeah, thanks for a fantastic presentation. And I'll hand back now to Lisna for some final housekeeping and any other comments that need to be made. Thanks, Dr. Budi.
Thank you very much, Paul,
Thank you.
for moderating the session. Thank you very much for all students.
Thank you
And thank
very
you.
much. Yeah. Thank
Ya,
you very
terima
much,
kasih
Pak
Bu
Budi
Lisa,
Faisal.
Bu Dekan.
Thank you very much, Pak Budi Faisal. It's very interesting and insightful presentation. Thank you very much also to Paul for your time. We are honored and pleased to have you. It's 10 p.m. already in Australia. Oh, not 9 p.m. already, yeah, in Australia. Thank you very much for your time, Paul. And to all participants, I would like to remind you, tomorrow we have a very interesting webinar series also. Tomorrow there will be a presentation from Bandung City Government with the topic of government intervention during COVID-19 pandemic. And tomorrow there will also be local residents that will join with us. So make sure don't miss tomorrow webinar, and we will inform you the Zoom link via WhatsApp group. That's all for today. Thank you very much for coming, everyone, and see you next time. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Pak
Paul. Thank you very
Budi.
much, Paul.
Thank you, Pak
Thank you,
Budi.
Paul.
Dekan, Pak Haryo, Bu
Thank
Pipi,
you, Pak Budi.
Stay
Permission
safe.
Steve.
Thank you, Paul.
Yep. See you tomorrow night.
See you.
See you again.
Izin live saya, Ibu Bapak.
Ya. Housekeeping dulu.
Okay, so